All right, joining us now is Democratic Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthi of Illinois. What was your reaction when you heard that, sir?
Well, thanks for having me on. I disagree with that language. We don't need to use that language with regard to anybody, including the president.
I wonder, when you hear someone using that kind of language, do you worry that it sort of paints your entire caucus with a brush you don't want to be painted with?
Well, I think that for sure it kind of distracts from the main issues that we have to contend with. One, we have to act as a check and balance on the president. The Mueller investigation is proceeding. As a former prosecutor in Illinois, I know that first you investigate and then you prosecute. And then the second issue is, the American people hired us to be in the majority to get things done. That means cleaning up the corruption in Washington, lowering health care costs, and trying to put together an infrastructure package that will actually put people to work and modernize our economy.
And I'm sure that people don't pay attention to that when these kinds of words catch so much attention. So I do want to say that the Congresswoman Tlaib, tweeted this after this sort of outrage over her use of the language. She said, "I will always speak truth to power, #unapologetically me." And then her office put out a statement. They said this: Congresswoman Tlaib was elected to shake up Washington, not continue the status quo. Donald Trump is completely unfit to serve as president. The Congresswoman absolutely believes he needs to be impeached. You've exercised caution when it comes to impeachment. In fact, last time that we spoke, you said you're waiting for the special counsel to complete his job to see the extent of the wrongdoing. That's what you told us here on CNN. What is the red line that Trump would have to cross for you to consider impeachment?
Well, I think that obviously there are different red lines, but for instance, firing Robert Mueller, I almost certainly would demand an inquiry on impeachment in the House. I'm very hopeful that my Senate colleagues, including Republicans, as well as even House Republicans, start to really look closely at the conduct that the president is engaged in, and they come to their senses. Because, we cannot allow anyone to be immune to the law, not even the president of the United States.
I want to talk to you about the shutdown. Here we are. We're 2 weeks into this. You have 800,000 federal employees. Right. There's thousands more contract workers, and those are ones who are not going to get back pay here, we should mention.
Correct.
What would Democrats be willing to give up to reach a deal with the White House when we hear this no wall, and then on the Republican side, there is going to be, or the White House, there is going to be a wall?
Well, look, the president has changed his positions on this particular issue so many times, it's really hard to know where he stands. And I think that the speaker and others are meeting with the president now, or they just finished meeting with him to discuss this. For me personally, we have to fight illegal immigration and protect our borders. I think that there's a lot of support for enhancing border security, but there's no support for a wall. The majority of Americans not only oppose a wall, but the vast majority of Americans don't want to shut down because of the wall. And so let's open up government now.
Do you oppose giving funding for border security, but some of it might be used for a wall, and the president would be able to champion that as a win for the wall?
Well, I think that we would be, at least in my particular case, I'd like to hear what the GAO and Customs and Border Patrol would like to see in terms of physical barriers. But it's got to be fact-based, Brianna. It can't just be based on a campaign slogan, which is the wall. The wall has become a big keep out sign to the rest of the world.
They do want,
and that's not what we want.
They do want different kinds of barriers in different places, as we understand it, and some of that would include fencing, a wall, maybe not in its entirety, but certainly $5 billion isn't going to give the U.S. that anyways. So it sounds like you're saying that you are open to that.
We're open to some physical barriers. Certainly there's already fencing on the border. There's 700 miles of fencing on the border. But I just defer to people like Congressman Will Hurd, a Republican who has 800 miles of this border, who says we can't have a cement wall, sea to shining sea, which was what the president tried to convey initially when he talked about a wall. I think he's changed his position on this issue as well, but that we can't have.
Okay, so one of your colleagues, incoming freshman, or not incoming, is a freshman Congresswoman now, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She is proposing taxing the wealthy, some of their earnings, as high as 70% to pay for a climate change plan that she's pushing that she calls the Green New Deal. So first off, it seems very unlikely that this would become a reality. We can say that. But this is an important idea that she's putting out there, this concept of a 70% tax on some earnings of the wealthiest Americans. What do you think of that idea?
Well, first of all, I think that she's right to bring up the climate change crisis as a very high priority that we should tackle. And I think that we should have an infrastructure package which is green, sustainable, and that helps the environment. I want to know what the specific details are behind that package, how much it would cost, and then where do we get the different revenue to pay for it. The one thing we can't do is balloon the deficit more than $1 trillion, which is what's happened now.
My question, Congressman, is would it be okay to tax not the first earnings of the wealthiest, but as you get above a certain cap, conceptually, would it be okay to tax that at a rate of 70%?
Well, look, I think that 70% is obviously a very high number. We have to look at what does everything cost and where do the revenues come from. It has to be revenue neutral.
Republicans will call that income redistribution. They look at that and they'll say that is seizing a lot of money.
Well, you know,
that is a huge increase.
Well, you know, the recent tax bill from 2017 was redistribution in itself. It hurts middle-class people and it helps large corporations. So I don't think that type of rhetoric is going to get them very far right now with the American people.
All right, Congressman Krishnamoorthi.